Admit all. Admit all. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for coming. Welcome. Oh, my heart. Oh, my heart. To see your beautiful smiling faces. Honestly, it's in deep gratitude. And thank you so much for coming today. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this sacred circle of words of wonder and realness, to this gathering of hearts, a place where we meet not just our guests, but ourselves. Let's just take a quick breath together and allow ourselves to arrive and land. Just let everything settle down. And when you feel it, go ahead and let the eyes open up. And I will shut the music off. Welcome to Zenful Conversations. I'm your host, ZenJen Brown, and today I want to share something special actually before we introduce our beautiful guest speaker today. Tomorrow we celebrate 5 years of this virtual studio. We began with gentle yoga in my living room during the COVID, and today we are on YouTube, podcasts, workshops, conversations, and more. So I just really, really honestly wanted to thank you so much for supporting this community. Today we have a deep joy of welcoming a beautiful friend of mine back for the second time, this beautiful poet, Julia Fehrenbacher. Her poems do not perform for applause. They listen, they whisper, and they remind us what we forgot we knew. All Julia's contact information will be shared at the end of the conversation today, as well as in the follow-up email tomorrow, along with the replay link. Julia Fehrenbacher is a poet of quiet truths. Her voice is soft, but what she says stays with you. Her published poetry collections include Staying in Love, On the Other Side of Fear, and her ebooks are Holy Liberation and She Will Not Be Quiet. They speak especially to women. That one, She Will Not Be Quiet, speaks especially to women finding their way back to their own voices. Julia doesn't just write poetry, she lives it. She lives close to the mystery. She teaches not by standing above, but by sitting beside. And through her writing community for women called Write Yourself Free, she guides others to put their truth on the page, to write as a form of inner freedom, of deep listening, and of sacred reclaiming. Tonight is a shared experience, a zenful conversation, a remembering. So open your heart, let the noise fall away, and let's welcome with deep presence and joy the real and the ever so beautiful Julia Fehrenbacher. Yay!
Thank you so much, ZenJen. What a beautiful welcome. I so appreciate it.
Oh, Julia, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here. I'd like to begin today by simply asking how you're arriving here today. Maybe not even as a poet, but as a human being in this moment.
Well, since we're being completely real and organic, which is ZenJen and I said that's kind of all we can do, especially now. And it's been a really, really challenging day. My daughter, who's 23, got in a car accident. She is okay, thank God. Thank God she's safe, but she rolled her car and totaled the car. And it's been a really rough day, but I told ZenJen, this is where I want to be. My daughter she, thank God, walked out of there with nothing. She said she got a piece of glass in her butt. That was it. So she truly is okay, but it was one of those she was driving back from Oregon to California, where she's living right now, and there was a May blizzard on the road. And I mean, just in the mountains and just was taking a corner and started to slip and slide. And so it's been a day, a really, really scary day. It's like a day of deep relief and gratitude. Like, thank you, whoever is responsible for, there's just so many factors that could have made it not okay. And so I'm just extremely grateful and also just very, very aware of the preciousness and the thin line of life, right? It's interestingly, that's kind of this new book I'm working on is the theme is this, the precariousness of life. And so that's where I am as a human today. It's been a scary day. That was a call I got first thing in the morning. So, but just really grateful to be here. And I told Jen that there's nowhere else I may have canceled for any other circle of women, but this and men, and this feels so safe. And so I'm happy to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank goodness your daughter is okay.
Thank you so much. Mm,
That is powerful.
mm,
Thank you.
mm,
I described this conversation and I figured I would ask you, since I said I described this conversation, we might as well do what I described it as. It says in this Zenful conversation, we'll explore Julia's creative path. So just a little bit about that, your creative path. When I
Oh,
say that, what does that mean?
my creative path has been a windy, twisty, wild ride, as I think probably most creative paths are. Um, I have been writing since I was a little girl and had a lock journal that I would hide my key and it was my sanctuary, my kind of safety net my whole life. When I was very young, it was a place to just put a lot of my fears. It was a tumultuous house, and the journal always listened and was always there. So it always felt like this shelter of kindness, really, for me. And it just always continued and evolved eventually into more of poetry. I think my poetry started in middle school, and often that was about boys. And so, again, it was just about trying to understand and put into words the beautiful and brutal life that is seems to be always the way it is. It's always the and the both, and the writing has been everything really to me. So I think what I will say too is that the life of an artist or a writer, I had a lot of maybe I would say angst, a lot of questions, a really deep longing to find my path. And for so long, I didn't know what that was because I didn't really think it was an option to be a writer and to be a teacher of writing. And so I think, as we often do, I tried to fit myself into these boxes that were already there. And I didn't realize that I needed to create my own thing that wasn't a box at all. So it took a long, 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 long time to really find my way where I am now, which just the other day, it came up, this teacher of mine said, "What is your ideal day?" And she was guiding someone through, like, what does it look like? What does it sound like? And I realized I am living my ideal days right now. It's such a miracle, really, because there are so many days where I felt like I don't think I belong here. And so to feel this immense gratitude for where I am right now is really everything. So, yeah, thanks for that question.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. Uh, yeah, those boxes could lead to a nervous breakdown.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. I
Uh,
yes.
so the relationship between poetry and healing.
Mm. It's they're the same for me. I really, really think to write is healing. Healing is writing. It's all the same. It's medicine for me. I can't imagine if I do go a couple of days even without writing, I feel the constriction and the pain, I would say, in my body. And so to put words on the page is healing absolutely for me. And then to share it with others is just this beautiful, happy bonus. And when others tell me that it's helping heal them, then it's just like, oh, incredible. So it's just so rich and again, I'm just full of gratitude for it. Yeah, writing, I can't recommend, no matter what, if you have any aspirations to write, whether you want to get your work out in the world or not, it is one of the most healing things I know. And when we make it about just what's true, and make it about our own healing, then it doesn't matter if it does this or it does that. It's an unconditional friend that is always there. And so if you have any want to write, please just write. Do yourself that favor. It's such a beautiful gift.
Yeah, I will say that, as most of you know, I'm still trying to find that voice, but I'm still in the courting stage.
Mm.
Um, but I will say that I have fallen head over heels in love with the writing groups, and these little circles of Zoom are just really honestly
Mm.
one of my favorite things to do. Um, so and we're still in the description here, and how language, when rooted in truth,
Mm.
can offer light, clarity, and comfort in our most vulnerable moments. What does
Mhm.
that mean to you?
Mm. Well, I think just back to what I just said, we could start a writing practice with a question, and then you find 10 minutes later you've answered your own question, because those answers really are inside of us. And when we can quiet this noise, and when we can quiet this, this trying to be good, I want to say it might be the enemy, the biggest enemy of all of us. Mary Oliver's poem, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to crawl on your knees for 1,000 miles repenting." And if we just let ourselves speak the truth, there's nothing hard about that, real. Well, sometimes the truth can be really buried, and that's why we call it practice. Sometimes it takes a lot of writing to get beneath, um, really get to those truths, but there's always something true. So even if that is, I have a purple pen sitting on a white page, we can start there. We can start with the birds outside the window. We can start with the longing to tell the truth and the not knowing what that is. So that's what I mean when I say one true thing after one true thing. And really, writing is just speaking on the page. And so I think we need to take out this, I think sometimes we put it on a pedestal a little bit, like it's some mysterious thing that we can't possibly get to or aspire to. And I really think we need to like simplify what writing is, which is speaking on the page. And again, the more we do it, the more I think we can get to those truths and those those medicinal qualities of writing. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Jen.
I think so. When you said to write, are you listening for something, or are you returning to something inside you? Are you listening from outside or returning inward? Or
I
is
would
it a mix
say
of both?
yes, and yes, and it depends on the moment. Sometimes I am listening inside, and that feels like an ache in my chest, and a deep longing, and maybe a sorrow or a fear. And sometimes it's talking about my day, and what I'm trying to maybe make sense of it. Or sometimes it's again starting with a question and keeping that pen moving so the editor doesn't have a chance to get in there and edit out before you can tell the truth, if that makes sense. My community is called Write Yourself Free, and it's not what we do in that class is not journaling. It's not like an intellectual recording of things. It's a wild take off the saddle, keep your pen moving, no editing. And the reason we do that and we write quickly is so that the editor that wants to cross it out before you even get it down on the page doesn't have a chance to get in there. So it's everything. It's this big playground where everything can come in and speak. And so sometimes it's more internal, sometimes it's the fly that won't stop buzzing above your head. And sometimes it's all allowed. It's this wild mix of everything, I would say. Yeah.
Cool. Did you bring a poem to share this evening?
I think because we're talking about writing right now, I think I will share a poem about writing that is from my book Staying in Love. And this one's called Telling It True.
That's the book right
Mhm. Yeah, thanks. Share a page of your story, and I will share a page of mine. And please let us not leave out the terrible, tripping parts. Let us not share what is plastically polite and pretty, but what is undeniably, precisely true. Please, no coding with sugar, no pretending disguise. I want to see the real beneath the I'm fines, to hear the enchanting everything of your being, of this being alive. I promise I will open the way sky opens for stretched out wings, that I will listen as if there is just this, just now, just you. Let us weave in spaces for slivers of silence, for slow seeing sips, for the true to seep in and through, space to notice the peak of light through thick of gray. Is there anything more beautiful than this, than you, than me, than telling it true, than opening, than listening? Thank you.
Would you read that last line again, please?
Yes. Is there anything more beautiful than this, than you, than me, than telling it true, than opening, than listening?
Mm,
Mm. Thank you.
thank you.
I want to say to all of you, if there's any particular poem that anyone might know that you would like me to read, please, I'm so open to recommendations or requests. So keep that in
Sounds
mind.
like a good time to ask if there's any questions, comments, or anything you would like to hear Julia read. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say or share at this
Mm.
time? Okay. Well, I wouldn't mind asking you to read another one,
Mm.
but I'm gonna let you choose it. I'm
Okay.
gonna let you choose it, but I would like to ask everybody listening to listen to this poem and let it stir something in you, not to
Mm.
analyze it,
Mm.
but to feel where it touches your own life.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, and I think I will read another one around writing because I think the poetry explains things better than I could with my regular words. So this one is called Closer to Free. It does not matter if it is good, if you use the right words or the prettiest words. if you craft sentences complete with commas and metaphors all in the right place. It matters that it feels good, that you splash around with joy, that you forget the world for more than a while, that you make a merry mess. Feel the flap of wings against rib cage, that you mix yellow and blue to make the just right shade of green. The green that reminds you of the field you rested in when you were still considered young. It does not matter if you win the contests, collect the rewards, the credentials, the most pats on the back. If all your A's are straight, if all your sentences come to a full stop. It matters that you forget the push of performance while you lean in close to opening crocus, that you let something in you open too. It matters that you drape words off the page, miles off the page even, that you write your way to true, that you feel the shake of a voice finally found, the flutter of a voice finally free.
Mm.
I
Oh,
I feel like that poem speaks a lot to my journey because, for a long, long time I couldn't really get the words out because I think the minute we try really hard to make it good, then we're not really making it true. We're sort of putting down our idea of what good writing is. And so when we can just let that go, completely, it's always those critic voices are there. But if we can continue to write through that and to remember and remind ourselves again and again that this is not about good. Good doesn't make us happy or content or full of joy. You could have a poem win some prize, and that's not ever gonna feel as good as feeling like you found the truth or that you're able to express that truth. That's what really feels amazing. And one thing I will say too about my creative journey is that I have the great privilege of writing with Natalie Goldberg, the author of Writing Down the Bones. She leads writing retreats in Taos, New Mexico, and I was lucky enough about 20 years ago to go and study with her 3 summers in a row. And when she gave us the permission to write the worst shit in the world, that is when I finally felt like I could start writing, like really writing, because I was not that all those voices that we accumulate and carry over our life, those could kind of step aside, and I could just say, "This is what's true for me," and it changed everything. It also gave me the courage to return and start to share my words and to start my own writing groups and writing classes. So it was very, very important. So that journey for me had everything to do with letting go of trying to be good, everything. So that is probably the most important thing I can say about it.
there was one of the questions in the chat is if you work with Lori Wagner.
Mm,
She talks about that wild writing, which I've heard about also.
I
She's used some of
yeah,
your poems. Yeah, I've used your poems myself.
yeah, absolutely. I have not worked with Lori Wagner, no. But I'm familiar with Lori, and Lori and I have had a
Same.
conversation because we do very similar work, but our paths, we just happened to, I don't know if Lori also was kind of rooted in Natalie Goldberg's work or not. I'm not really sure about that, but we came from very separate places and we kind of discovered each other. I think she started sharing my poetry in her classes and then contacted me, and now we've had several interactions since that. That's a great question. Yes.
Will you have a request to read the most important thing?
Oh, sure. I can do that. Mm. Yeah, and I just want to say, as far as questions go, I'm going to be like one of those teachers that's like, there are no bad questions. And I really mean that. Like, don't be shy if you have questions, please ask. I know sometimes it's kind of hard to ask those questions.
You
Page
know what though? These conversations give space for deep thought sometimes, and it's just a receiving, you
hmm
know.
Absolutely. And if you want to just can simply receive, please feel free to do that too. So no pressure, but just want to make sure you aren't shy if you would like to ask. The most important thing, and this is also from the most staying in love. I am making a home inside myself, a shelter of kindness where everything is forgiven, everything allowed, a quiet patch of sunlight to stretch out without hurry, where all that has been banished and buried is welcomed, spoken, listened to, released. A fiercely friendly place I can claim as my very own. I am throwing arms open to the whole of myself, especially the fearful, fault-finding, falling apart, unfinished parts, knowing every seed and weed, every drop of rain has made the soil richer. I will light a candle, pour a hot cup of tea, gather around the warmth of my own blazing fire. I will howl if I want to, knowing this flame can burn through any perceived problem, any prescribed perfectionism, any lying limitation, every heavy thing. I am making a home inside myself where grace blooms in grand and glorious abundance, a shelter of kindness that grows all the truest things. I whisper, Hallelujah, to the friendly sky. Watch now as I burst into blossom.
Woo!
Mm.
I read that. I've read that poem quite a few times in my offerings, mostly in my when I'm leading yoga and when I'm reading poetry, when I'm leading a yoga class, I pace as I read. And I'll tell you, when I get to that part, I will howl if I want to. Another personality takes over. There's a strut. All of a sudden, a strut goes on. It's like I will howl if I want to.
Oh, I love
It,
that so much. Yeah.
oh, it's so real too. It's so real. Thank
Mm.
you. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites also. I know you recently met James Cruz.
I did get to meet James Cruz. So I love James Cruz. I actually have a couple of poems in his anthologies, and the most important thing is one of the poems in one of his anthologies. And so was familiar with him. He and I'd have many emails back and forth. And then he came to my Write Yourself Free community as a guest poet. And that was absolutely perfect and great. And then he now has a new anthology with his husband Brad, and they did a reading in Portland at Powell's, and I got to go actually give James a real hug. And
Oh,
and his husband, Brad. So that was, when we first met via Zoom, it was like we both were just like, have we not met? We had to have met, right? Like it just felt like a kindred, just a beautiful connection. And I absolutely love him and I love his husband. And for me, it took a long, long time to feel like I found my people. And when I started to find the poets, I was like, oh, that makes sense that the poets would be my people. So James and Brad are two of those people for sure. her for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I know I'm in the right space. Although my voice is not completely there yet, I know darn well it will be because I'm in the right spot. I can feel it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Absolutely.
we had James and his husband Brad on a few weeks ago
Mhm.
talking about that wonderful book that they're bringing to fruition, that they brought to fruition.
Yes.
Love is for all of us, and that was just an amazing conversation. But did you talk about love?
We unfortunately didn't have a lot of time to have a personal conversation because it was a public event, but we had a quick hug and it was really great because a lot of the poets who contributed to the anthology were there reading their poetry. And so pretty much every poem in there, the title's Love is for All of Us. So the poems are about love, really, in all of its various forms. So, yeah.
Yeah, Annette actually is with us, and I believe you have a poem in that book that we're talking about of James, correct?
I do.
Oh,
I have a couple poems and an essay.
oh
So
wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
exciting, Annette. Oh,
yeah,
yay.
yeah.
I'm gonna
it's
jot
been
your name
wonderful.
down.
I had a chance to meet him once in Milwaukee when he did a reading. So anyway, here's the new book. It's gorgeous.
That's the book.
I'm glad that you
Yay.
have
Oh,
that
look
there.
at this.
Yes, I don't have my copy.
Yay.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I highly, highly recommend it.
It's so needed right now.
It's so, so, so needed. I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
just
It is.
because it's so
And am I
inclusive.
missing? I was to make sure I don't miss anybody else that might have a poem or in any of these collections.
Mhm.
If you are, just pop your microphone off and say your name and your poem so we get that acknowledged. Just make sure I don't miss anybody. Go ahead, Annette. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's fine. It's just the inclusivity and poems of tenderness and belonging, and we need belonging right now so much.
Absolutely. Yes, I could not agree more.
Oh, Rita, you were able to meet James and Rosemary. Yeah, I know they were recently together too. I'm secretly excited for everybody meeting each other like this. That is wonderful. How was that for you?
It was really special. They have a wonderful, they balance each other in a really wonderful way because Rosemary's very energetic and James is much more laid back, but they just collaborate beautifully. And we had a wonderful group. It went very, very deep. I drove down to San Luis Obispo. It's supposed to be a 5-hour drive and it took 7.5 traffic.
Ooh, wow.
But it was worth every moment.
Wow. Yeah, well, that sounds, I mean, to have both of them like that, it's a rare opportunity. I would say that's pretty nice. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing
Rosemary
that.
is
Yeah,
that
Joanne. James honored her crow voice. I remember. That is
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Crows just speak
Wow.
so much. I can't explain why, but
Mm.
I found out a month ago. I was at a First Nations gathering, and one of the elders sort of opened it up. If you'd like me to talk to you one-on-one about your spirit animal. And I kind of said, although I taught First Nations for 6 years, and that's when I was in my 30s. And she said, I think it's a raven or a crow. And it's like the penny dropped because I am very fascinated by crows. And they've always come to me, like very close to me. I mean, physically close, maybe otherwise, when I'm going through some very interesting processes. And
Mhm.
they are a very smart, intelligent person. Like I think Dave Suzuki
Mm.
talked about, crows can do things most birds can't. I don't know what it's called. Is it motor coordination? They can manipulate. sticks and stuff. I don't know what it's called, but you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. They are incredibly intelligent, and they'll even like drop like a nut or whatever in the street so
Yes.
that cars can ride over them and break it so that they can then
Yeah.
eat they do all kinds of amazing things. Yeah,
Wow.
really incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
That
And
is incredible. That is
someone,
incredible. I can't remember, Julian, I can't remember what call that was we were on. I'm
well,
getting them all
Oh,
confused anymore, but
no.
I remember having that conversation with you about the crows.
I've written a few poems about crows, and I actually, when I first I was in great transition in 2022, and I don't know how I came across James Cruz, but I did, and he was so magnanimous, and he sent me a crow poem, and I didn't talk to him about crows, and it was very intuitive, so I humbly sent him one back. And then I sent him one of my lucky crow feathers, and he was so delighted. Yeah,
mm,
no, he's a very, well, magnanimous is the only word I can use.
yeah.
And I live in, I'm a Canadian, and him and Brad often go to Montreal because, of course, Vermont is very
Mm,
close. So that was kind of cool. Yeah.
mm. Oh,
Awesome. Awesome. I
amazing.
do like
Thank
how
you.
he stays very present. I find that he stays very present to where my emotions and my energy like look he's like
Mm,
really cool.
mm.
Um but anyway, yeah. So obviously we all many of us admire him as well. Um
Mm.
what did you want to say when you decided to come onto this show, Julia? What is it that crossed your mind to share?
Well, I really think the message of it doesn't need to be good. In fact, please, please don't try to make it good. Please give yourself the gift of expression in whatever way that is. Like, I recently read a book called We Need Your Art, and it's it's such a gift for ourselves to express freely, and please don't deny yourself that. I guess that's my greatest message is just share in whatever way and express in whatever way is calling to you, and don't let this not good enough get in the way of that. Just do it. I guess that would be my main message, really. Oh, I see Carol's got her hand up. Carol, and
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Carol.
There we go. Wouldn't let me unmute, or I wouldn't let me unmute. You've said so many things, Julia, that made me think of what Rosemary Watola Trummer says, which is it doesn't have to be good, it just has to be true. And it's just, as you say, finding community, finding poetry, and finding poets is such a wonderful thing, because that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to have found Laurie a few years ago. She introduced me to your work. She introduced me to James Cruz's work. And as people have been talking and writing, I also feel moved to share that Rosemary is coming to Vermont this summer to host a 2-day writing retreat with James in his hometown. And I was blessed to be able to go last year and meet both James and Brad. And I don't know if everybody in this particular call already knows about this, but if not, I don't know if it's full, but check out their websites if you're interested in meeting, 2 wonderful poets. Well, 3, including Brad,
Right.
He
Right.
showed up last year to provide us lunch from the farm where he works.
Uh,
But I also wanted to ask, if I could, would you read what Silence said, please? And maybe if you could talk a little bit about where it came from, how it was born.
Yeah, I did see your question in the chat, and so I was gonna just say, hey, I will share that poem, but you beat me to it. Yeah, so this really is a lot of my poems, and maybe most of maybe all of them are really messages to myself. I think we often write when we're in a place of, often for me, I will show up to the page. Well, lately I'm showing up to the page no matter what state I'm in. Sometimes I'm overjoyed, sometimes I'm in a place of sorrow, and it just showing up regardless. But this particular poem was kind of this message to myself of just trusting, just showing up regardless, no matter what. And so it's really a little love note to myself called What Silence Said. And this is on page 30 of my Staying in Love book. This is what silence said to me today. Trust what you can't see. Move forward despite the wobbly groundlessness of I don't know. Breathe, love, create, show up as you are every day, no matter what. Go to where wild irises grow. Say thank you for all of it. Weeds, cracks, sunbeams, that hand on your shoulder, the forever throb of ache. It's all a doorway, a hand leading you back to grace. Thank you for asking for that. You know, as I'm reading, I think often when we feel discomfort in any form or those harder feelings to feel, the tendency is to want to run fast and get away from them. And what's wrong with me? Why do I still feel this way? And any chance I can get to write something that reminds me that I can stay with that feeling and I can turn toward it and let it speak is a gift. And you know, as we all know, what we resist persists, right? When we're trying to avoid something and move away from it, it tends to get bigger and louder. So this is a reminder for me to just stay here, come back to it, even when it's hard. And it really is a doorway to grace. There's always something there that we can learn from whatever moment we're in. So yeah, I think a lot of my poems have a similar theme to them because it's been a real struggle for me to trust what I can't see to keep moving forward. You know, so often progress, I put that in quotes, but the outside stuff is often takes a long, long, long time to see any movement. And so we feel like there's all kinds of interchange happening, and sometimes it takes a long time for that to match outwardly. And yeah, Joanne, you know what I'm talking about. So just to keep moving, to keep doing it, and to keep, for me, just to continually remind myself, what is my intention here? My intention with my writing is because it's medicine for me first, because I have to do it, because I really have no choice. It's my healing, it's my home. That is always the first reason. And whatever happens externally is a happy bonus, really. So reminding myself of that again and again and not getting attached to any outcome, that's been a real challenge. And I think that we all probably can relate to that.
Well, there's a lot of vulnerability in there. There's a lot of vulnerability in there. Um, it's one thing sharing in these groups, which I adore. I love sharing what I wrote in the groups, but it's another thing putting it out every day, which is something you have been doing. You have been having a mostly unedited poem a day for how long now?
Oh gosh, today was day 93 or 94 days in a row of just putting out something every day. And that's been quite a ride. It's been a real exercise in trust, you know, when you meet the page and say, today I really have nothing. And then to just stay there and know that something will speak eventually. That's been such a practice. It's also maybe as much as the trust, it has been a practice in letting go of just, you know, maybe I really don't like it at all, what I wrote. And I'm like, ugh, what I'm just, it doesn't matter. If someone reads it and say, wow, I thought she was this kind of poet and she really is terrible. I feel like I'm letting go of that more and more and more. And that is really freedom when I can just, it's like each poem becomes less and less precious, less and less, we put less weight on it when we just keep putting it out there. And it just doesn't matter so much if whether anyone thinks it's good or deems it worthy enough, including myself. So that has been a really incredible practice.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. What has it taught you about yourself?
Hmm. Well, it's taught me that I can show up daily. It's taught me that more and more about just caring less about the opinions of others. That's been huge. And I've been moving closer and closer to that, but it's a lifelong process, right? So to get a little freer and a little freer and a little freer, I always want to move toward freedom. So if it feels like a movement toward freedom for sure. And also, it's getting me out of maybe a box of what I would typically write about. I'm writing about things because I can't write about the same thing every day. And so it's a practice of really getting out of the box of what I would typically write about and just digging a little deeper into maybe my past and maybe some things I haven't written about. So it's been a really, really rich process for me.
Deepening your practice. And I feel that few of these people on here, as far as I know, Rita and Greg both write one every day. I'm not sure who else does. But wow, more power to you. I can't even sit my butt down every day. Moira had her hand up.
Hello, beautiful you. I
Mm.
just want to begin. I want to thank you, Jen, for your opening question of asking Julia how she's arriving here today and honoring that humanness and really, really with you at a heart level about the impact of what you experienced. And yeah, thanks for you're always so authentic, and I really, really value that.
Thank you.
We'd had a conversation at some point about, um, when you put your writing out there and really being okay with just not knowing who it's impacting, who it's reaching, what's happened, that kind of thing. And that trust that you're talking about too is like this fits for me. I want to share this, my medicine with the world. And I wonder, is there, I'm sure there's been many moments, but is there one moment where you learned of the impact of something you wrote that has stayed with you, that's maybe tender or heartfelt, or that you'd be okay sharing with us? Because like that is like the gift, the precious, the magic of it all is you don't know, and then somebody shares, emails you, or sees you, or talks to you, or phones you, or whatever it might be. And I mean, that's the gift. Like, what a beautiful gift you're offering everyone who writes, anybody who's creative too, but for you, like what I'm just wondering if you're comfortable sharing maybe a moment.
Oh gosh, thank you for that question. That's a fun question, Moira. Gosh, I like several things come to mind at once. One woman wrote to me and said she got that phrase, "Watch now as I burst into blossom," tattooed on her body. That was a big, beautiful moment. Incredibles. And I had a woman write to me saying she was gonna get on the road and take a trip in her kind of like a minivan or camper, and she was writing the poem "The Most Important Thing" all over her camp, like in on the camper, the whole poem, apparently. And then there's been some songs written. That poem probably has gotten out in the world more than any other poem. And a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that it is in one of James's anthologies. Sometimes and it's interesting because sometimes you think, well, a poem's getting out because it's, quote, better than the others. And I think often it doesn't so much have anything to do with that. And it has more to do with the eyes that happen to see it. It just is just more widely out there in the world. So that's really interesting. I've had some people writing songs around that poem or with those lyrics. Those words as the lyrics. So just, people telling me that they carry poems around in their pocket, that kind of thing, which is just like, really beautiful. Readings at weddings, that kind of thing that just really moves me. So thank you for that question. It
Can
is
I just say
beautiful.
one more thing about it? Could it be like a living legacy for you as you're doing it? These sorts of things. When we think about legacy, when we think about impermanence, when we think about how have I contributed in this world? Am I contributing? How am I contributing? I just wonder if you would take that in internally within yourself as part of your journey, as part of your
Yeah, I think that the greatest words I could ever hear is somebody saying, this helped shift something in me. This helped me move in a direction that I wouldn't have moved otherwise. Like it helped me become truer to myself. So just this idea, this message of making the home inside of ourselves, which really, truly, I believe is the number one most important thing, like always, forever, because everything stems from how we treat ourselves. It all ripples outward. And so I love that that poem is the one that is getting out because that's the message I think I would most want to offer people. So yeah, thank you, Moira. I love that so much. And I'm realizing that Amrita, you and I have had exchanges on my Substack page, haven't we? I just put that together. Yes, it's so fun to see your face. Yeah, it's great.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, Moira, thanks. Yeah, because that was actually one of the questions that was, I was wondering
Mm.
how it feels to witness the ripple of your words in others, like that. Does anybody else have any questions or comments that they'd like to ask, share? Do you have a closing poem that you have chosen?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I had so many poems that that I was potentially going to read. Let me just see which one would like to be read here. There's so many potential ones. Let's see. I will go ahead. I'll read this one called The Mighty Sage. This is one of my newer poems. It's not in a book, and I had several poems that aren't in my book that maybe next time we'll read some of those. But this one, yeah, this one's called The Mighty Sage. It is not possible to keep it all. Some will be lost along the way. The road will appear, then disappear 1,000 tired times. Finally, and right on time, you will remember you were never meant for the beaten path. You will tug at countless doors. Some will swing smiling open. Others will seal themselves safely shut. And then, with delicious delight, you will remember there is no door to the open sky. And what beats inside you can never be lost. When days get dark, remember the sun still pours her light. Remember, you have never needed to force the ground to hold you. Remember, songbirds do not need to be taught to sing. my darling, my love, my holy holder of light. Look at yourself and marvel. Remember, there is a mighty sage inside you who has always whispered the way, who has tossed you a sky full of stars. Go now, scatter them everywhere.
Beautiful. Yeah, Amrita says there is no door to the open sky. Wow. Some of these lines, some of the lines you come up with are powerful.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, and I think, when you ask what is the message, I think my poetry speaks my messages better than I could just say it here. But I think that poem has a lot of the messages, just let's not limit ourselves. Let's just be who we are. There's only one of us in the whole wide world. Let's just be that. Let's be that. Yeah.
So is that your final, before we close, if you could whisper one truth into the heart of everybody listening and carry it with them, what would it be?
I think I just said it. Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
It's like, gosh, just honor and love the heck out of exactly who you are. And I want to say, like, especially the parts you don't like so much. You know what I mean? Because I just sometimes imagine if none of us had flaws, right? Or imperfections or quirks, or imagine how totally boring and terrible this life would be. Like, our flaws are often what give us color, right? And when we just embrace them, then I think they can really be a gift. When we resist them, then they turn into icky things that we don't like about ourselves, and it kind of contaminates everything else. So I think just turning toward these perceived imperfections is one of the paths to freedom. And yeah, I think that might be my message. You guys have been so amazing. Thank you for your
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and give your contact information. And again, this will be sent along with the replay link tomorrow, so you'll be able to click on everything. But you can go to juliafehrenbacher.com, FEHRENBACHER.com, juliafehrenbacher.com. You can find everything there. Information about her writing community, her coaching program, the link to her Etsy store, and more. You'll also find Julia on Substack, writing that poem a day. And that's substack.com/@Julia Fehrenbacher, right? Julia F-E-A, yeah, the whole thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
that sounds
all right, wonderful. Yeah, so I will be sending all of that out. And yeah, thank you for walking beside us tonight, for sharing your love here. Thank goodness, and all our love to your daughter, and may everything continue to work out. Please keep us updated. Everybody, thank you so much for showing up. It's so important that we show up open-hearted and real, and I just thank you so much for supporting these conversations. May you leave here with more courage to meet your own truth. Please visit Zenful Conversations to sign up for more of these soulful gatherings. You can email Julia at writeyourselffree@gmail.com. And juliafehrenbacher.com is where you can find social media and everything. In deep and honest gratitude for all your love and your beauty. Thank you for sharing it here tonight.
everybody.
Thank you, Julia.
So you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.